Humanity had always been the underdog in the grand tapestry of the galaxy. A small, insignificant speck on a backwater planet named Earth, we were the last species anyone expected to rise. Our planet, locked in the third orbit of a small yellow star, was nothing special in the eyes of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilizations. They had seen hundreds of species come and go, each fleeting in their ambition, each failing to reach the stars. They considered us a primitive race, one to be watched, perhaps observed for a few generations, and then forgotten. At first, we didn't care. We had enough problems of our own: wars, famine, disease, and poverty. But somewhere, deep within humanity's collective spirit, a spark ignited. A spark that would grow into a fire. We were tired of being ignored, of being pushed aside as nothing more than a curiosity. The time had come for humanity to rise. Humanity's first foray into the stars was humble. The construction of the Pioneer ship, a one-man spacecraft capable of breaking the Earth's atmosphere, was little more than a technological exercise. It was meant to test our theories of interstellar travel, to prove that we could one day join the greater galactic community. No one on Earth had any delusions that it would be more than that. The technology was nascent. We had just learned to reach into our own solar system, let alone venture into the unknown. Still, we sent out probes, satellites, and research ships, each one a small step toward something far grander. We were the new kids on the galactic block. It was the perfect place to start, quiet, humble, and unnoticed. But we did not remain that way for long. The first alien species to make contact with humanity was the Trocheans, a race of massive, insectoid beings who had explored 1,000 worlds before our sun was born. The Trocheans were far older than humanity, their empire stretching across dozens of star systems. To them, we were an insignificant blip, an oddity in the vastness of space. They approached Earth with cautious curiosity, sending a delegation to observe our planet from a distance. Their scientists, having observed us for a century, did not believe we were a threat. They took pleasure in watching humanity's slow but steady advancement. They believed that our social systems, full of division and strife, would eventually implode, leaving Earth ripe for colonization. In their infinite arrogance, they assumed we would never overcome our primitive nature. Yet, to their surprise, humanity had a way of adapting. In spite of our wars, in spite of the adversities, we overcame. One by one, the nations of Earth united in the face of growing threats, first from climate change, then from artificial intelligence and a rapidly expanding technological landscape. We began to send signals to the stars, and though the Trocheans noticed, they dismissed us. A fleeting, self-destructive species, they would say. Nothing to fear. Their mistake was monumental. Part 3: The First Steps into the Unknown. The first time we truly caught the attention of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations was when humanity's space program took a leap forward. By the mid-21st century, Earth's unified global government had completed the construction of the Ascendant, a massive interstellar ship capable of reaching nearby stars within a human lifetime. It was humanity's first true exploration vessel, designed not just to send probes or satellites, but to carry a crew of explorers across the vast stretches of space. It was the crowning achievement of human ingenuity. The Trocheans had long monitored our attempts to break out of our solar system, but their arrogance led them to believe we would remain a local curiosity. The first signs of real trouble came when we attempted to send a message to the stars. Not just any message, but a deliberately open signal, a bold, desperate, and defiant transmission into the void. "We are here," the message said. "We are coming." The Trocheans received it first and dismissed it, just as they had dismissed our species for so long. They ignored the implications of the message, thinking it was nothing more than the folly of a species with too much ambition and not enough understanding. But the Ascendant did not stop at just sending a message. It launched, carrying with it a crew of human explorers determined to find the others. We were no longer asking for permission. We were demanding attention. We sent another message soon after: "We are not a curiosity. We are humanity. We will find you, and we will meet you on equal terms." Humanity's first real encounter with an alien species came in the form of the Vixians, a race of humanoid beings from the Andromeda Galaxy. They had watched us from afar, intrigued by our rapid technological advancements. The Vixians had long been isolationists, preferring to stay out of the politics of the galaxy. They saw humanity's unrelenting drive to explore as both a threat and an opportunity. The Vixians arrived in the midst of our great voyage toward the Alpha Centauri system. Their fleet was vast, 100 ships filled with soldiers and diplomats. They made contact with the Ascended in a grand show of force, sending a signal that demanded our immediate surrender. "We are the Vixians," their message said. "You will submit to our rule. Failure to do so will result in your immediate destruction." Humanity's response was unexpected. Instead of panic or fear, there was determination. We had survived far worse than alien threats. We had risen from the ashes of our own mistakes and created a global society. Now, we stood ready to face the unknown. We did not bow. Instead, we did something far more powerful. We demonstrated our strength. We deployed new technologies that we had developed over the years: defensive shields, advanced weaponry, and the ability to hack into alien systems. We were not a species that could simply be erased. The Vixians were stunned by the sudden show of force. They had underestimated humanity's capabilities. It was then they realized that perhaps this species, which had been ignored for so long, had become something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. But the Vixians were not alone in their miscalculations. Other galactic powers races that had watched from the shadows had also seen the rise of humanity. The Crithians, a warlike species with a 1,000-year history of conquest, saw us as a potential threat to their dominance. The Cthar, an ancient race of sentient machines, sensed the growth of a new competitor. And the Siltar, a species of emotionless strategists, knew that we were a force that could disrupt the delicate balance of power they had spent eons building. All these races made a choice. They would come together not to eliminate humanity, but to control it. They would work in the shadows, spreading misinformation, sabotaging our technology, and trying to break us apart. But humanity had already surpassed the point where their tactics would work. The rise of humanity, once a series of missteps and gradual steps forward, had now turned into something more explosive. We were no longer a species to be ignored. We had developed faster than light travel, we had constructed vast fleets, and our military technology had surpassed what many believed possible for a species as young as ours. In response to the galactic powers' attempts to control us, humanity united in a way never seen before. The factions that had once fought each other on Earth, rivals, ideologies, and political systems, now stood together, united by a single cause: to protect the future of humankind. The first victory came at the Battle of Vorex, where humanity's newly formed fleet of warships engaged a coalition of Vixian and Crithian forces that had been dispatched to quell our growth. The battle was brutal, with casualties on both sides, but the defining moment came when humanity deployed its secret weapon, a quantum disruptor. This weapon was designed to disable the advanced technology of the galactic powers, rendering their ships and weapons useless. The galactic powers watched in horror as their fleets were decimated. This was no longer the humanity they had ignored. This was a species that could stand toe-to-toe with the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The Ascended, now a symbol of humanity's growing might, led the charge. It was no longer just a research vessel. It had become a warship, equipped with the most advanced weaponry and technology we could muster. Its crew, once explorers, had now become seasoned soldiers. But even in the midst of battle, they carried with them the ideals that had led humanity to this point: cooperation, determination, and the belief that no one, not even the most ancient and powerful civilizations, could hold humanity back. And thus, the galaxy began to see a new reality. Humanity was no longer the ignored, the forgotten, or the weak. We were the threat. We were the force that could no longer be disregarded. Part 6: The Shifting Balance of Power. The consequences of humanity's newfound power rippled across the galaxy. The Vixians, who had once seen us as an inconvenience, now considered us their greatest rival. The Crithians, whose strength was based on unchallenged military might, realized they had underestimated humanity's capacity for innovation. And the Siltar, whose careful strategies had always kept the galaxy's power in equilibrium, found themselves questioning whether they had miscalculated by trying to keep us in check. Humanity had no desire to conquer the galaxy. But we had proven that we would not simply be subjugated. We would not remain in the shadows of other races. We would forge our own path, and if the galaxy could not accept us as equals, then we would force a new order into existence. We had become the galaxy's biggest uncertainty. Our rise had disrupted everything. Alliances were shattered, old empires crumbled, and the old powers began to fear what would happen next. And now, we were ready to claim our place in the stars. Part 7: The Gathering Storm. As humanity's influence spread across the galaxy, the balance of power began to shift in ways that even the oldest civilizations could not have predicted. For millennia, the galaxy had been governed by a delicate equilibrium, with ancient empires maintaining a quiet but unyielding dominance over the stars. The Vixians, the Crithians, the Siltar, and other species had built their civilizations based on principles of superiority and control. They had long assumed that humanity, a relatively new and unproven species, would never challenge their hegemony. But as humanity demonstrated its technological prowess and military strength, the once dominant empires found themselves facing an existential crisis. Humanity wasn't just competing for space or resources, it was asserting itself as a force that could not be ignored. The Vixians, once dismissive of human ambition, now viewed us as a direct threat to their long-held sovereignty. The Crithians, who had prided themselves on their brutal efficiency and merciless conquests, saw in humanity a species that could disrupt their carefully laid plans. Even the enigmatic Siltar, whose strategies had ensured the galaxy's stability for eons, now found themselves perplexed by humanity's rapid ascent. To the galaxy's ruling powers, humanity's defiance was a shock. They had assumed that we would eventually bow to their influence, that our efforts to claim a place in the stars would falter in the face of their superior technology and ancient traditions. But humanity's rise was unstoppable. As our fleets grew in number and power, as our influence spread across star systems, the galaxy began to change. A Cold War emerged, one where diplomacy and subtlety were replaced by open hostility and saber-rattling. Old alliances began to fracture, and new coalitions formed in response to the growing threat of humanity's unchecked expansion. The galaxy, which had long been ruled by the quiet whispers of power, was now filled with the deafening roar of impending conflict. Humanity had become the galaxy's wild card, a species that no longer played by the rules set by the older, more established empires. Our ships were everywhere now, patrolling the borders of newly claimed territories, asserting control over the galactic fringes. We had made our presence felt in every sector of space, and the galaxy's old rulers were left to wonder, how far would humanity go? And more importantly, who would be left standing when the dust settled? In the midst of this growing tension, the galactic powers sought to recalibrate. They could no longer ignore humanity's rapid ascent, nor could they afford to underestimate our potential. The Vixians, who had once dismissed humanity as little more than a nuisance, now began to prepare for a future where humanity might be the dominant power in the galaxy. The Crithians, whose empire had been built on endless conquest and bloodshed, knew they could not match humanity's sheer ingenuity and tenacity. The Siltar, always calculating, began to observe humanity with a mixture of fascination and wariness, aware that we had disrupted the very foundation of their strategic frameworks. In a rare act of cooperation, these once fragmented empires began to unite against the growing human threat. They formed the Galactic Council, a coalition of the most powerful species in the galaxy, intent on containing humanity's rapid expansion. But there was a problem: none of them fully understood what humanity was capable of. Despite their combined might, none of the galactic powers had ever faced a species like us, one that could adapt, innovate, and rally together in ways that surpassed their expectations. The Council's first move was to target humanity's fleets. They attempted to launch a coordinated strike against several of humanity's outlying territories, aiming to cripple our ability to project power. However, they underestimated the strength of humanity's defensive systems, which had been developed with a singular focus: survival against overwhelming odds. Our fleets were equipped with advanced shielding technology, quantum disruptors, and weapons far beyond anything the galactic powers had ever seen. The first clash between the Galactic Council and humanity's forces was at Gornus Prime, a planet that had recently come under human control. The Crithians, alongside the Vixians and Siltar, had sent a combined armada to bombard the planet into submission. What they didn't expect was the level of resistance they encountered. Humanity's forces, well organized and fiercely determined, struck back with precision. Our ships, though smaller than the massive dreadnoughts of the Crithians, moved with agility and purpose. Humanity's fleet commanders, who had grown accustomed to thinking on their feet in the chaos of space combat, executed strategies that the galactic powers had never encountered before. They adapted to every move, anticipating the Council's tactics and countering them with unprecedented effectiveness. For the first time, the galaxy's dominant powers were faced with a force they couldn't control. Humanity didn't just defend Gornus Prime, we turned the battle into a statement. We fought not to survive, but to win, because humanity's fate, we realized, was no longer tied to the whims of the galaxy's ancient empires. We were no longer the hunted, we were the predators. Despite the success of the Gornus Prime campaign, humanity knew that the war was far from over. The Galactic Council, though shaken by their first major defeat, was far from broken. They quickly regrouped, and a new war began to brew in the shadows of galactic politics. But it wasn't just a war of fleets and weapons, it was a war of ideologies. Humanity's actions had made one thing clear: we were no longer content to be mere pawns in the games of ancient civilizations. We had grown beyond their petty politics and hierarchies. In our desire to stand as equals among the stars, we had unintentionally set off a chain reaction. The galaxy, once a place of fragile peace, was now on the brink of an all-out conflict. As the war between humanity and the Galactic Council escalated, the stakes grew higher. Entire worlds were ravaged by battles between the two sides, each one more brutal than the last. The Crithians, whose war machines were once considered invincible, began to fall in droves. The Vixians, whose wisdom had always guided their empires, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Even the Siltar, whose cold calculations had once ensured their dominance, now found themselves scrambling to keep pace with humanity's unpredictable strategies. The cost of defying the Council was steep. Entire fleets were lost, entire civilizations were displaced. Human colonies were burned, and millions of lives were lost in the chaos of war. Yet, through it all, humanity never faltered. The very thing that had once made us weak, our ability to unite, to adapt, and to innovate, was now our greatest strength. The galaxy had underestimated us, and now it was paying the price. The final turning point came when humanity discovered a deep, hidden secret in the galaxy, a powerful artifact left behind by an ancient, forgotten race. This artifact, a relic of immense power, had been lying dormant for millennia, buried beneath the surface of an uncharted world. The Galactic Council had known about it for centuries, but they had kept it a secret, fearing that its true potential would one day fall into the hands of an unpredictable species. When humanity stumbled upon the artifact, however, we saw it not as a tool for domination, but as a means to protect our future. The artifact was capable of manipulating space-time itself, an energy source of unimaginable power, one that could provide humanity with the ability to not only defend our colonies, but to reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. The discovery of the artifact was a game-changer. With its power in humanity's hands, the galactic balance tilted irreparably in our favor. The Council's combined fleets, once thought to be unstoppable, were now vulnerable to the force we had unlocked. We had become the galaxy's greatest threat, not through sheer might, but through the ingenuity and vision that had always defined us. And now, humanity stood at the precipice of a new era. We had faced the overwhelming power of the galaxy's ancient empires, and we had overcome them. No longer would we be ignored. No longer would we be the underdogs. We had become the true rulers of the stars, whether the galaxy was ready for us or not. Part 11, The Artifact's Power. With the discovery of the artifact, humanity's position in the galaxy changed forever. The ancient relic, an object of unfathomable energy, lay dormant beneath the surface of a desolate, uninhabited planet, far from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council. But now, in our hands, it represented the future of power so immense that no empire could ignore it. The artifact, once believed to be a myth, turned out to be a device capable of harnessing energy on a scale far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. It could manipulate gravity, bend spacetime, and even alter the very laws of physics. Its creators, an ancient species long vanished from the galaxy, had used it to dominate their age, but they had left it behind as they disappeared into the annals of history. Now, humanity had stumbled upon their legacy. At first, we were careful. The power of the artifact was too great to be wielded recklessly. Humanity, having grown accustomed to facing existential threats, was cautious with such a weapon. We studied it, learned its secrets, and slowly began to unlock its potential. Our scientists, engineers, and physicists, once confined to the limitations of known science, now pushed the boundaries of possibility. But not everyone shared our caution. The moment word of the artifact's discovery spread, the Galactic Council took notice. The Vixians, whose once great empire was crumbling under the pressure of humanity's rise, saw the artifact as a chance to reclaim their former glory. The Crithians, ever hungry for conquest, viewed it as a weapon of war. The Siltar, masters of strategy, realized that control of the artifact could shift the entire galactic order. All of them, once dismissive of humanity, now feared us. The artifact became a symbol, not just of humanity's power, but of its ambition. With it, we no longer needed to fight on equal terms with the galaxy's most powerful species. We could shape the stars to our will. But the Council would not go down quietly. The Galactic Council, its membership now a patchwork of every empire that had ever ruled the galaxy, convened in secret to formulate a plan. They realized that if humanity truly mastered the artifact, the very fabric of the galaxy would shift irreparably. The galaxy's existing power structures would collapse, and new, unpredictable forces would emerge. There could be no room for such a threat. The first attempt to wrest the artifact from humanity came in the form of a covert strike force, a combined fleet of Crithian warships and Vixian assassins, sent to infiltrate our most secure facility, the place where the artifact was being studied. They arrived in the dead of night, their fleet cloaked in shadow, their mission clear: steal the artifact or destroy it. They were careful, methodical. If they succeeded, humanity would lose its most significant advantage. But humanity was ready. The Ascendant, now a symbol of humanity's military might and strategic genius, had been retrofitted with technology derived from the artifact itself. Its shields were impervious to most forms of attack, its weapons capable of cutting through the mightiest of warships. The Ascendant was humanity's vanguard in the coming war, no longer just a vessel of exploration, but a mobile fortress designed to defend the future of our species. The Crithian Vixian strike force was intercepted by a fleet of human warships. What followed was a battle unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Ascendant led the charge, its engines roaring with power as it tore through the enemy fleet. Crithian warships, once considered invincible, were torn apart by humanity's newfound strength. The Vixian assassins, trained in stealth and subterfuge, were no match for our counterintelligence and quick thinking. It was a resounding victory for humanity, a clear signal that we would not relinquish the artifact or our newfound position without a fight. But even in the face of defeat, the Galactic Council had not given up. The war that had once been a cold conflict was now escalating into something much larger, a galaxy-spanning war that would reshape the destiny of every species involved. In the wake of the failed attempt to steal the artifact, the Galactic Council initiated full-scale war against humanity. This time, they would not rely on covert operations. They would meet us head-on, with fleets of unimaginable size and weapons of devastating power. But humanity was not unprepared. Our fleets, bolstered by the artifact's energy, now possessed weapons that could obliterate entire star systems. Our shield technology, once the envy of the galaxy, was now unparalleled, capable of absorbing the full force of an enemy bombardment and retaliating with equal force. We had evolved from the underdogs of the galaxy to the galaxy's apex predators. The war began in earnest. The Crithians launched an all-out assault on the human colonies in the Orion Arm, hoping to cripple our war-making capacity. The Vixians sought to take control of key strategic systems, while the Siltar plotted behind the scenes, manipulating events to create chaos. But each of them underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, and to survive. The first major battle of the war took place at Valdron Station, a human outpost near the edge of the galaxy. The Crithians, having amassed a fleet of over 100 ships, arrived with the intent to crush humanity's defenses and secure the system. But what they didn't expect was the sheer coordination and ingenuity of humanity's military strategy. Our fleets, though smaller in number, were more agile, more resourceful, and more determined. The Crithian fleet arrived in orbit above Valdron Station, only to find that the station was not the target. It was a decoy. The true battle unfolded in the system's asteroid field, where humanity had laid a trap. A series of cloaked warships, designed to blend in with the space debris, launched a devastating surprise attack on the Crithian fleet. The enemy was caught off guard, their ships picked off one by human precision and firepower. The battle for Valdron Station was a turning point in the war. The Crithians, once thought to be the most formidable fighting force in the galaxy, had been decisively defeated by humanity's tactics. The news of their defeat spread quickly throughout the galaxy, and for the first time, the Galactic Council realized that humanity was no longer just a threat, it was an unstoppable force. As the war raged on, the Galactic Council found itself in disarray. The once unified front of the galaxy's greatest empires was beginning to fracture. The Vixians, once the leaders of the Council, began to reconsider their stance on humanity. Their desire for control was matched by a grudging respect for human tenacity and ingenuity. The Crithians, after their crushing defeat at Valdron Station, began to turn inward, questioning their long-standing traditions of conquest. And the Siltar, whose cold logic had always dictated the course of galactic events, found themselves unable to predict humanity's next move. Humanity, on the other hand, had begun to reorganize the galaxy around its newfound strength. While the wars continued, humanity also began to extend olive branches to those who were willing to negotiate. The Council's unity was beginning to dissolve. Diplomacy, once a tool used by the galaxy's ruling species to maintain order, was now being reshaped by humanity's presence. Former enemies began to seek peace with us, realizing that coexistence might be preferable to an endless war. And yet, even as the tides of war turned in humanity's favor, there was one final question that remained unanswered: what would humanity do with the power it now held? With the artifact in our possession, and the balance of power in the galaxy shifting, we stood on the precipice of an entirely new era. Would we continue to fight? Would we impose our will on the galaxy, forcing the old powers to submit? Or would we forge a new path, one based on collaboration, mutual respect, and exploration of the unknown? The galaxy was ours for the taking, but humanity had yet to decide what kind of rulers we would become. As the war continued, there were whispers among the human leadership: should we push forward with our dominance, taking control of the galaxy for ourselves? Or should we attempt to build something better, something more sustainable, something that could last for millennia? It was the question of our future. Would we become like the empires we had overthrown, or would we become something new? In the heart of the conflict, a new vision began to emerge. Humanity would not simply dominate the galaxy, we would create a new alliance. An alliance built on cooperation, peace, and the shared desire to explore the stars. The old systems of power would be dismantled, replaced by a new order, a galaxy where every species, no matter how small or new, would have a voice. And so, humanity's destiny would be not just to rule, but to lead the galaxy toward a brighter future. We would no longer be the underdogs, nor would we be the oppressors. We would be the architects of a new order, one where no species would ever be ignored again. The war was over, and humanity had won, not just with power, but with the promise of a new future. The galaxy would never be the same. The dust of war had settled, and humanity stood at the precipice of an era that would redefine the entire galaxy. The Galactic Council was no more, dismantled by the very forces it had once sought to control. In its place, a new order was taking shape, an order where power was no longer concentrated in the hands of a few ancient empires, but instead spread across the galaxy like a living, breathing organism, evolving in response to the needs and ambitions of its diverse inhabitants. Humanity had won, but our victory was not one of conquest. We had defeated our enemies not through the sheer weight of our military might, but through our vision, our ingenuity, and our capacity to build something better. It was a victory that would forever change the course of galactic history. The Galactic Union, as it came to be called, was humanity's answer to the fractured and decaying systems of the past. It was a loose federation of species, each with equal representation and the collective goal of promoting peace, exploration, and prosperity. The artifact, the powerful relic that had played such a pivotal role in the war, was not a weapon of domination, but a symbol of our commitment to knowledge, cooperation, and growth. Its power was used to fuel scientific exploration, to establish advanced communication networks, and to protect the borders of the Union, not to subjugate or control. For the first time in the galaxy's long and tumultuous history, a sense of balance began to take hold. The ancient empires, though battered and broken, still had a place within the new order, but they were no longer the unchallenged rulers. The Vixians, the Crithians, the Siltar, and others were now equals among us, each with their unique strengths and wisdom to contribute to the growing galactic community. There were no longer borders defined by fear and dominance, but by cooperation and mutual benefit. Humanity had created a new paradigm, a galaxy not ruled by the strong, but by the will to build, to innovate, and to protect. It was a fragile peace, but it was a peace that had never been known before. There were still challenges to overcome, old grudges to heal, and new threats on the horizon, but humanity had proven that the impossible was possible. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was a road we would walk together. Yet, even as humanity began to reshape the galaxy, an ominous shadow loomed in the background. There were whispers of something darker, something older than the empires themselves, an entity that had lain dormant for millennia, waiting for the right moment to awaken. It was not a species, nor a coalition of forces, but something far more dangerous, a force of entropy, a remnant of an ancient war that had devastated the galaxy long before even the first civilizations had risen. Some called it the Ender, a being of incomprehensible power that existed outside the boundaries of space and time. It had been sealed away by the very races that now inhabited the galaxy, and its awakening had been the stuff of legends, stories passed down through generations, spoken of in hushed tones. But now, as humanity's influence grew, the fabric of the galaxy itself began to tremble, as if something deep within the stars had taken notice. The artifact, despite all its power, was not immune to the forces that stirred in the dark corners of the galaxy. Some believed that it had been a key, a beacon that had awakened something that had been waiting, patient, and silent. The rise of humanity had shifted the balance, and now the Ender was stirring, preparing to rise once more. Humanity, still in the midst of building a new future, found itself faced with an enemy like no other, one that could not be fought with weapons, or diplomacy, or even the incredible power of the artifact. It was a force of destruction, an embodiment of entropy that sought only to undo the work of creation. Its purpose was not to conquer, but to erase, to return the galaxy to a state of nothingness. The Galactic Union, still in its infancy, now had to confront a threat that transcended all political and military divides. Species that had once been at each other's throats were forced to come together to face this existential danger. Humanity, having led the charge to create the Union, now found itself at the forefront of the fight against the Ender. We had become the galaxy's leaders, and our responsibility had grown beyond our wildest imaginations. The Ender's influence was subtle at first. Systems began to experience strange phenomena, stars fading away inexplicably, entire sectors of space becoming devoid of life, and ancient relics of previous civilizations crumbling to dust. These events were dismissed at first, written off as natural cosmic occurrences, but as they multiplied, it became clear that something far more insidious was at work. Humanity's scientific community, alongside the brightest minds from across the galaxy, turned its attention to the artifact, hoping that it could provide some clue as to how to stop this growing threat. It was no longer a tool of war, but a key to understanding the forces that threatened to undo the galaxy. The artifact, though powerful, was a mystery in and of itself. Its origins were unknown, and its creators had long since vanished. Through research and experimentation, humanity's greatest minds uncovered a startling revelation. The artifact had once been used to seal the Ender away, to contain its destructive power. But over time, the forces that bound the Ender had weakened, and now, as the galaxy grew more connected, the seals that held it in check were starting to unravel. The Ender was not a being of flesh and bone, but of raw, destructive energy, a cosmic entity that could manipulate time, space, and matter itself. To stop it, humanity would have to find a way to reinforce the seals that bound it, or risk losing everything. The Union, despite its newfound unity, was in turmoil. Leaders debated, factions splintered, and old enemies began to resurface. Some argued that the only way to survive was to flee, to abandon the galaxy and seek refuge in distant, uncharted regions of space. Others, unwilling to give up everything they had fought for, advocated for an all-out assault on the Ender, even if it meant risking the destruction of everything. Humanity, as the unifying force of the Union, took it upon itself to seek a solution. Led by the brightest minds, we embarked on a journey to find the missing pieces of the puzzle. There were ancient texts, long buried beneath the ruins of long-dead civilizations, that spoke of rituals and methods to reinforce the seals that had once contained the Ender. But these were merely fragments of knowledge, and many of them were lost to time. The search for the Ender's true weakness became a race against time. With every passing day, the galaxy began to deteriorate further. Whole worlds blinked out of existence. Ancient star systems vanished. The Ender was coming, and it was more powerful than anyone had imagined. In the midst of this chaos, humanity's leaders and scholars discovered a hidden truth, one that had been overlooked for centuries. The artifact, in all its power, was not just a tool. It was a conduit, a bridge between the known universe and the realms beyond, where the Ender originated. Its power was not meant to destroy, but to hold the Ender at bay, to trap it in an endless cycle of containment. To stop the Ender, the galaxy would need to return to the very origins of the artifact. Humanity, once again, was at the center of this grand cosmic struggle. The final battle would not be fought with weapons, but with knowledge, sacrifice, and unity. It would require the combined efforts of every species in the galaxy, each bringing its unique strengths to the table, but united by a single goal, to ensure that the Ender did not wipe out all that had been built. The convergence of minds and resources began. The artifact's secrets were unlocked, and humanity, now fully aware of its role in the galaxy, stepped forward to lead the final push against the entity that threatened to undo everything. The galaxy had once been divided, with empires clashing for dominance. Now, as the Ender stirred from its slumber, those same empires united once more, not to conquer, but to protect. Humanity had shown the galaxy that we were not just survivors. We were leaders, builders, and protectors. And in the face of the greatest threat the universe had ever known, we would not falter. The final chapter of this epic had yet to be written, but one thing was certain: humanity would never again be ignored.